Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
and we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here with my trusted partner, Matt Pickett, and our very special guest, Kate. Kate,
hello.
you go by Kate and not a last name. So I'm just going to say yes. Welcome to our pod, Kate. It's so nice to meet you. Tell us about your week and what's the latest with Kate's world.
Well, I just got back from Florida. So I've been in Florida for 5 or 6 days. I don't know how long I was there. But I just got back. So I took a little bit of time off of recording and doing podcast things, but I'm back in the grind. I released an episode yesterday. Yes, right? Today's Thursday? Yes, yesterday. Yep. And yeah, that's about it. I just started a new job yesterday. So that's been crazy, but it's been good.
Nice. What sort of a field do you work in?
I'm in title insurance.
Okay.
I like to keep it kind of basic for safety reasons, I guess.
No, that's why I didn't say where do you work, but
right. Yep. So I'm in title insurance. Started in real estate back in Colorado like 7 years ago now. Oh my gosh, 9 years ago now. Mm-hmm. So I just got into that right out of college because it was a job. And then ended up really liking it and kind of moved around to different things and ended up really liking title side of it and stuck with it. So I've been in that for about 6 years.
Cool. Is that like a lot of working with people?
It is a lot of working with people from my side of things. So I usually work with lenders and agents and working on those relationships, building those relationships so that they bring their buyers and sellers to us. And then I get to work with the buyers and sellers through that process.
Nice. Definitely from hearing you on your podcast and like just knowing you from Twitter, you're really great with people. So like, it's not a surprise that would be something you'd really enjoy. So that's cool to hear.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So in my week, it's been, we're getting into the really busy part of the semester for me. So, while that's exhausting, it's so exhausting. It's just every day a chance to make, more of a difference with more of the students that I work with. So it's a really nice part of the year for me. So that's kind of where I'm at. And Dawn, how are you?
I love that. And I remember when I purchased homes in the past, I would get to know, now that you mention it, the title person, not just the realtor. It was like the whole team of people. And yeah, we had a little title company nearby and they were like friends. So I never would have thought of that. Good question, Maddie. That's awesome. You are great with people. You are just a natural. So we're just super excited that you said yes and you're coming on our podcast.
Of course.
So Kate, we want to know everything about you that you're willing to tell us, except for the company that you're working for. Right. So your Twitter reads, I coin words on this show.
I love it.
So we know you have a podcast, which is super great. If anyone's not aware of that, you're going to be by the end of this show. But your Twitter is TailKate, because you're a tailgater. Oh my God, that's so good. That's so cute. I know it sounded super corny just now when I said it, but it's really the cutest name on the planet.
Hey, I don't know the name, so
love it. And then Colorado girl in a Wisconsin world, right?
Correct.
Right. Yep. So at CO Girl WI World, which is also adorable, and you're just adorable. I'm very emotional today. I am. So you're the host of TailKate, and someone who resembles Aaron Rodgers said once, probably more than once would be my guess.
I didn't know you were gonna read my bio.
I'm reading your bio. This is what I do.
Twitter.
That's your Twitter. Beautiful and funny sometimes, according to maybe it's a doppelganger of some sort, maybe. I don't know. So anyway, so tell our audience everything they need to know about you, if there's anything left.
All right. Yeah, there's lots left. I mean, I'm from Colorado. So I grew up there my whole life, moved to Wisconsin about 2 years ago. And that's where the CO Girl WI World comes from. I host a podcast called TailKate with Kate. And TailKate actually was coined by Kim Colello. She was at a tailgate and she said, "You're like a TailKate." And it just kind of stuck and really worked out for the podcast. So that's a benefit. And yeah, Kate Adams said it was awesome. So we stuck with it. My sports are split down the middle. So I'm partially a Packers fan. Well, I'm full Packers fan, but partially some Colorado sports teams as well. Colorado Avalanche fan, Rockies fan. And then the other half is all Wisconsin. So I'm a Bucks fan, I'm a Brewers fan, and Packers. My whole family's from Wisconsin. So my mom grew up here in a little town called Stoughton, Wisconsin, which is about 40 minutes south.
Very close to my hometown. Very close to my hometown.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's 6 miles away. Super close.
Oh, I love that.
Oh.
So my mom spent summers there once they were moving around. My grandpa's in the Army, so my mom moved around a lot, but she would come back for summers, and that's where I get my Wisconsin accent from, because my grandpa still has a pretty thick accent. And so growing up, I just kind of like learned all of that. A lot of my so-called culture is very Wisconsin and Midwest. Like I went to a Brewers game and I had a purse and I had beer in my purse because it's my purse beer. And I pulled it out when I got to the parking lot, and someone said, "That is the most Wisconsin thing I've ever seen in my life." And so just like little weird things like that's not weird to me at all. So grew up very Wisconsin, grew up with my grandpa telling me if I ever decided to become a football fan that it had to be the Packers. And so in college, when I decided to like football, which happened to be after the Super Bowl, because why would I choose to be a Packers fan before that and get to experience that? So I've never seen the Packers win a Super Bowl because I didn't watch that game. And so I decided that I would stick with my word, become a Packers fan. And here we are.
Nice. So having grown up in Stoughton, this is just something that occurred to me. Do you have like Norwegian heritage like everybody in Stoughton does?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So my grandma, pretty much both my grandparents are like 50-50. So they're 50% German, 50% Norwegian. So by the time you boil down to me, I'm like 60% German because my dad is also German. Little bit of Norwegian in there, probably about 20% at this point. But yeah, I grew up like making lefse and things like that. My mom made what are they called? Rosettes. So what they're called, the like little cookies that you like, basically like funnel cakes, but they're cookies. But same process, you fry batter and put powdered sugar on them. So yeah, I grew up, any project I had to do on like a country, my mom always made me do Norway because we just knew a lot about it. Like I have those little like trinket boxes like with the painting. I don't know what it's called, but with modeling. Yep. So my mom had a bunch of that stuff. I have some of that stuff. So yeah, very Norwegian family.
How about that? Yeah. So my mom is very proud of her Swedish heritage. That was a big part of like my growing up. And the same kind of thing. It was like a class project with the country. My mom was like, "Well, you should do Sweden." We had Swedish flags everywhere. We went to like the Scandinavian American Club Julefest in Madison every year. So yeah, dude, I know Stoughton real well. So that's hilarious.
That's so funny. My a fun fact: my grandpa, his name is on the Stoughton Veterans Wall. They did this park, I don't know, probably 5-6 years ago, and they asked all of the veterans from Stoughton if they wanted to put their name on it, and so his name's on there and on a brick that leads up to it too. So it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Nice little heritage.
Nice.
So much Scandinavian heritage in Wisconsin. People don't realize that, but that's a lot of where our accents come from as well.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely here in Minnesota. And I've been out here. I don't know why I thought you were in California. I don't know, but
because she's
whatever.
a Stanford fan. Is that
Well,
why?
because you, oh, but and there's also like a lot of the horsemanship and the horse I mean, the horse people, the equestrian competition and all that. Were you into horses? No,
No,
that's
none of
kind of
that.
a, yeah, okay. That's kind of a thing. I knew a lot of, it seemed like all my Scandinavian friends of any, Finland, Norway, Denmark, or Sweden were equestrians. So never mind. We'll just move along. That was really smooth. You can tell we practice. Okay. Okay. So your origin story is basically grandpa said you have to watch you have to, if you're going to watch and be a fan of football, it has to be yeah, that's a very Wisconsin thing.
Yeah, my mom grew up a Broncos fan because my grandpa retired in Colorado, so she grew up a Broncos fan and a Cowboys fan, and I don't really know how that happened. So he was really disappointed. So he said that someone here has to be a Packers fan.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, he
how
apparently
did that happen?
I have no idea.
Oh, a little rebel your mother is.
I know.
Oh, I can see that. Maybe.
I mean,
that's good thing though. That's good thing. So yeah, so we love the name of your podcast, and I think it's adorable. And in your podcast is fairly new, right? You started, what made you just decide to start a podcast?
I don't know. I wanted to do it for so long. And I just didn't know what to do, because knowing myself, I couldn't talk about one topic for the entire life of the podcast. It would end up being like a maybe 20 episode podcast before I gave up on it. So I was just kind of waiting for it to manifest into something that worked. And then the tailgating stuff happened, and meeting a bunch of people on Twitter, and then kind of became my thing that I like met a bunch of my Twitter friends. And a friend of mine on Twitter was like, it would be really cool if you just brought a bunch of your friends on and like talked about random stuff, like just anything. And then it became like the 4 main sports. I was like, you can keep that basis and evolve into something else. My background's in theater, so I've always loved doing this kind of stuff. Just didn't really know where to start. And then the Thirst Trap Thursday happened, and I was like, this is the time. Like, if I'm going to do it, this is probably taking advantage of the situation, and releasing the first episode with Jamie that was all about Thirst Trap Thursday and what it was about. And it was just timing. It just worked. I wasn't planning on starting anything until after football season, and it just snowballed.
Side note, we love Jamie. Friend of the show, Jamie. She's so great.
I love her.
Yeah, and your podcast is I was saying this stuff before we started, just I've been enjoying your podcast a lot, Kate. Just the personality you have, and the like positivity, the personality you bring to it. It's you're very engaging. I enjoy it very much. So
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And so your background, you said, was in theater. Did you study? Did you work in theater? Tell us about that. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's something that I don't.
I like to poke people.
That's good. It's something I don't really talk about a lot on Twitter, particularly. Just because I'm kind of a sports person on there. But I grew up in a choir. I was in a professional city choir in Colorado Springs from the time that I was 7 until my last tour with them was probably when I was like 22, and toured the world with them, recorded CDs with them, did a whole bunch of stuff that kind of got me into the theater side of things. And I went to an arts magnet school for high school. And I went for the choir, but then my choir teacher was like, well, you should just audition for theater, because, you could use that and you could do the musicals and things like that. And I had never done any acting before, other than just, during songs or whatever, small things. So I auditioned, got into that portion of the magnet school, and did that all throughout high school, and ended up wanting to be a theater teacher. High school theater teacher. So I went to University of Colorado Springs for theater. with intention of getting my master's in theater education. Things happened and that didn't work out, but my degree is in theater from the University of Colorado.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so much in common with you, Maddie. I mean, choir, band, all that. You're like
Music,
so closely related. True. Yeah, through your formative years, shall we say? Not currently. You're not in a
much now.
Not so much now.
Pick up the trombone again, but it's been a little while. I suppose the last time I played trombone was when I did the music for the show, but before that, it had been a while.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I made him do it.
I was happy to do it.
Aren't you a tram? He's like, oh, I can find some music. And I was like, no. You can write the music, can't you? Anyway, that was good. Well, I love that. And that's probably why you're so, like, I don't want to use the word smooth because that sounds kind of
natural. How about natural?
Yeah, but it is smooth. I mean, with people, you probably love people, right? Maybe. I don't either. It's okay. Especially this week or whatever. Yeah, we can. Yeah. Okay. Awkward.
I do love people. Here's the thing.
Talking with people, maybe.
Yeah.
Over Zoom.
It has to be, I have to be in the mood for people. I'm very much I think I'm pretty unique in the sense of, and some people probably like this too, but I'm very extroverted, but when I'm introverted, I'm very introverted. So like there's just some days I'll be out and like with friends and halfway through the night, I'm like, I'm done here. Like I am so done here. And I'll just get up and leave because I can't do it anymore. I just, so I have to have that recharge time. And sometimes it's a long time.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I'm very introverted. I'm a very creative. A lot of people think I'm extroverted when they meet me, but that's because I've probably like been alone for 3 months and haven't had a conversation with anyone. And I'm like,
right.
Hi. But yeah, I need a lot of recharge. I probably need 10 times the recharge per human activity.
Right.
Which it's neither bad nor good. It just is, what are you, Matt? Are you an introvert or an extrovert, or what are we called?
Very much an extrovert, and in all the ways, like the external processing to think things through, even to process my emotions sometimes. Like being around people, I get a lot of energy from talking to people. When I have to work on projects by myself, like for work, I start to get sleepy. So no, very much an extrovert.
Wow. I can't really, that's interesting. You're a real so we're a good balance, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
In many ways.
In many ways. Yeah. Like you have a brain and I don't. At least for the last couple of weeks, that's how I feel. So, okay. So how about I wasn't going to ask you this, but you made me think of this, Kate. Tell us about Twitter TailKate. What's that?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know Bruce on Twitter, but he
Edmonds?
Yes.
Yeah, love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's great. This was like, how long ago was this? Probably at the end of not this past season, but the season before that. He had put out just like a generic tweet that said, if anybody's interested in getting together at a Packers game, comment on this post or whatever. And I commented on it and then like completely forgot about it. And then like 4 months later, he put us all in a group chat and he said, well, you guys are the ones that responded. So what game do we want to do? And then ultimately that group of people got like dwindled down to like 6 people that were actually going to go to a game. And we had picked the Steelers game. And we all bought our tickets. And then I happened to tell Jamie about it. And I said, hey, we're all going to the Steelers game. If you want to go. And then everyone just bought their tickets. And we ended up having a big group of like probably 15 people buy tickets in the same spot. And then there were just other people that decided to go. And then through that, I decided I would buy a parking spot and do a big tailgate and get, some beer pong and cornhole and a bunch of other things set up. And I had my pickup truck at the time and set up a big spot for us. We made food, we had drinks, and then I just bought that same parking spot for the rest of the season. And every home game, I just set up a spot and I said, hey, if you want to go to a tailgate, you're welcome to. You guys are all welcome. And I just blasted it on Twitter, and each game had like a different group of people because people come from out of town. And there was one game that it was literally just a couple of local people. That was the Vikings game on the 2nd of January, and it was so dang cold, and it was a night game, and absolutely terrible weather to be sitting out there and tailgating in. So it was like 5 of us, but I have pictures from each time, and it's a big different group of people, and kind of just became my thing. And I'm going to do it next year, and we'll have a big, huge tailgate again. That'll kind of be the pre-planned for everyone to try to fly in. It'll be within the first 5 games of the season. And that'll be hopefully announced as soon as we get the schedule and people can start planning.
I love that so much. Don and I talk a lot about how great community is, and the Packers Twitter community.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so many people I would love to meet in real life. And the fact that like you're living it, you've met so many of the people, doing this and having this sense of community, like actually physical in the physical world. I'm jealous. I guess so super awesome.
It is really cool. I mean, I never thought that that's what it would be. Like, I've been on Twitter since 2012, something like that. But I never used it and utilized it for anything beneficial really, until like a year and a half ago. And it's so wild because all of my real life friends now are pretty much from Twitter. I joke with Jamie and Kim Colello all the time. I'm like, if I ever got married again, it would be no one but Twitter people. Like it would be just Twitter people.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's really, really cool. Well, I follow along the tailgate thing, and I remember that game. I remember Jamie going. Oh, and she brought us all along on the plane ride and all that. She was so emotional. And it's kind of cool. I mean, because if you've been to Lambeau already and all that, it's not like it's ever going to get old, but it's what I mean is it's really cool to walk through that when somebody goes from out of town for the first time, especially. That's just like, oh, so special. And so that's probably pretty cool for you to be part of that energy, because that's a crazy amount of different energy than just going to a game with some friends, which is great energy, right? But then it's all this extra emotion on top of it. Yeah. Now, did you meet the UK Packers group when they came?
No, we ended up, I think someone tweeted at them that they could stop by, but I think we were totally different.
Missed each other.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, next time. Well, I'm usually in Wisconsin visiting family for a few weeks in autumn, usually.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I haven't been back there since the pandemic and, multiple surgeries and junk for me. But if I can get healthy enough and feel like I'm not going to just die of something when I go there, because I was really sick last time I was there too. I was sick before. I didn't get sick there, but I was miserable, but I had a great time too. And I tried to drag my sister to a Packer game, and she's like, oh, it's going to be too cold. And I'm like, I want to go. I can't. But, right? I think, we can get to the point, and it's true. Like even with the Super Bowl, it's this, and if you're introverted, which she definitely is fully, I don't even think she has an extrovert side like I do. She's just fully introverted. And it's like, I think it's just more fun to do it at home with my kids, and we'll make our food and we'll watch it on the big screen, and, we won't have to deal with all the people. So I can see that if you're from Wisconsin and you've been doing this for so long, it might be that way, but for me to be experiencing it, and also because I didn't like football when I was in Wisconsin. So now it's like, oh, this is so cool. It's great. So what you do, you're providing an amazing, whether you realize or intended to or not, an amazing service to the community by just being you and doing all that. It's really cool. I didn't know you could like rent a parking space. How does that work?
Yeah, it's just online, you buy it, and we made friends with the gal that works at the little stand when you go in, and but yeah, you just buy it ahead of time, and or you can pay that day of, but we are right in front of the Rainichke field in that parking lot there. So there's like all the fencing for the field is there with the big G's on the gates. And it's really cool because people can, take pictures in front of that. We always try to take our big group picture in front of it. And it's really cool because people like Jamie, and I had Jasmine there the last game. Like some of those people have never even been to Wisconsin before, let alone to a Packers game.
Right.
So like I'll pick them up from the airport and I like hand them a spotted cow and I'm like, welcome to Wisconsin, and a bag of cheese curds or whatever. And then I get to show them all the like really cool stuff to do. And if we have time, we can hang out in Milwaukee for a little bit. And it's really cool at the beginning of the season because it's warm enough outside that I can actually take them to like a lot of the really cool stuff and not be held up in a hotel room or whatever. But it's so cool to like show people, and it's not even my home state, but I'm so proud of it and like get to show them all the good things about Wisconsin, because sometimes people don't have like the best image of it. And especially in the fall, it's beautiful. The leaves changing, that drive from Milwaukee up to Green Bay is absolutely stunning if you're hitting at the right time of the year. And so it's so cool. It is one of the coolest things about Twitter to me, is bringing people that live elsewhere and have never been to Wisconsin to a Packers game.
That's a really good point too. Yeah. And it is, and that's why I usually go in October, and I usually come for a few weeks because I'm not going to just fly in and out and see my family. I'm going to Door County and I'm going to Packers game and I'm going to see the colors here and there and take a million photographs and whatever. So yeah, it's a beautiful state, and it's great for like hiking and getting out. Yeah. But October, that's it. Like November, I don't ever go back in the winter. I did the first 5 years when I lived here, but I've been out here for decades, and I won't go back in the winter unless I absolutely had to, because I can't handle it anymore.
Where are you at?
I'm in San Diego, and it was it was 55 yesterday, and I thought I was going to die. I mean, I was freezing. Even my cat was cold. Like we were just, I can't handle it. That's when so I funny. Go back there, the last time I remember, my teeth hurt so badly from the cold. It's like I needed mittens for my teeth or something. I don't know. I literally just got out of the airport into the air and almost died. I was just like, I froze up, and I just said, "This just not. I think I'm going to die here. I'm just going to freeze into place." But I was always, in my defense, I was always that way. Even when I grew up, I couldn't handle any colds. So, and I didn't mean to come out here for the warmth or anything. It just sort of happened, and I sort of just stayed. But it's not. I hate talking about the weather. I really do. It's so monotonous. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so that's really cool. So as Matt was saying, it's all about community with the Packer community. And one of the questions I love to ask our guests is to name your favorite thing about the Packers community and one thing you might change if you could.
Oof, that's hard. I really love how the community as a whole, and this kind of extends to the team sometimes, I feel like too, like we just stick up for each other. And I feel like, and some other fans might feel this way about their team too, but like I always feel like the locker room, like they just stick up for each other too. And we kind of have that same mentality and we take care of each other, which I know for a fact a lot of fan bases don't have that, and don't feel that way. So I love that. Something I would change.
Or maybe nothing.
No, we need to stop being so dramatic. Everything is so like life and death, and like it kills me. It's like this whole Aaron Rodgers situation, which we don't have to get into, but because I'm kind of over it. But it's like it's not the end of the world. There's still going to be the Packers. We're still going to be fans. I'm still going to go to games. I don't care who's quarterback. Like we could have Joe Schmo off the street. If all three quarterbacks got hurt for, God forbid, something happened, like I don't care. I legitimately don't care. I will be a Packers fan anyway. And so sometimes it's like I get, we want our team to be good and the best, and we want to, have the team make the best decisions, but sometimes it's so dramatic.
Yeah,
this week, very well put.
On the Wednesday Pack a Day, Gage Bridgeford said, like, don't let this Aaron Rodgers thing ruin your life. Don't let it ruin your day. It's just football, and it doesn't really affect your life that much. It's obviously we care about it, we're passionate about it, but at the end, like, yeah, we're gonna love the Packers, and life's gonna go on with whatever the personnel, is for next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, the community gets very dramatic about every little thing, for sure.
About everything too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, absolutely everything. And I'm in a lot of group chats, and I love my group chats. But it was so funny when Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show, because there's all this buildup. All the everyone's saying, "Oh, I can't wait for him to go on." And then 30 seconds in, he's like, "Yeah, I'm not telling you guys anything."
Yeah.
Like,
that was hilarious.
I know. I knew.
And
yeah.
everyone was so mad in my group chats, and I'm like, you fell for it again. Like,
exactly. What did you expect?
Yeah.
It started a fight in a chat that I'm in. It was like,
oh really?
You're like, retreat. Yikes.
Well, that's, yeah. I do feel, and I know no one asked me, but I do. I just decided I did interview because I've asked this question a million times. I will say there does seem to be a little bit of this black and white. Either you're this or you're that. Like you can't just not care about a certain particular matter that much. Mm-hmm. I'm not even saying what it is. And I mean, I was a little annoyed. I've been crabby all week because I wasn't feeling well. I'm not crab. So when I say I'm crabby, it's because I'm like, wow, I'm crabby. Because I recognize it. But I wanted to block a certain phrase, and I couldn't remember how to do it. And Matt told me how. I asked him, like, how do I do this? And he showed me how to do it. And I posted that I did it. And I didn't mean it as I don't like this person or this phrase or whatever. It's just, I don't want to hear about it. I'd really rather hear about all kinds of, like, your podcast or, what Andy Herman gave his origin story the other day. And it was like, there's just so much more to life that's more real to me and more important. And I follow a really cool cow. Like I follow this cow on Twitter, and there's just more things that, like, I don't want my timeline to just be flooded with something that's not that important in the scheme of things. Like you say, we're going to be Packer fans for life.
Yeah.
We have to be, because it's like we're genetically required. We're from Wisconsin.
We have to.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you for sharing that, because and it was really well put, both sides of what you would change possibly and what you love about it. Very nice. I always love hearing that. And so we will just kind of transition on over to our signature superlatives, which is our main part of our show, which a lot of people look forward to. And we're going to start with Matt's superlatives, and I can't wait to hear what Matt thinks. I was telling you all before the show that I can't remember anything, so I don't remember what I was going to do. So we're going to muddle through what's the second part of this, but so Matt, take it away.
Yeah. All right, we got 3 superlatives this week, as usual, and my first one is most revealing. So this goes out to, you actually just mentioned it, Andy Herman talking about his origin story on Monday's Pack a Day. one of the reasons why we started this podcast was to be able to share our appreciation for these people who make this content, these people who are engaged with the community. And so to hear, you know, Andy Herman talk about his story, how he got to like the place that he is in his life now, you know, having developed the Pack a Day podcast, becoming a credentialed, you know, media member for the Packers, all the stuff that he does, just to hear like how he got there, hear more about like his life was really fascinating. And I was really, I was into it, you know, because it was funny because he started off the episode being very much like, hey, you know, this isn't like everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone's going to care about this. You know, it's kind of weird to talk about myself, but it's like, no, man, go for it. Like, so to hear like how a person could have gotten to that place in their life, it's really fascinating to me. I mean, especially as somebody who, you know, helps students to figure out what their path forward is going to be in their education and more broadly in their life. Hearing about how people got to where they are is a very fascinating thing to me. So, yeah, most revealing. I thought that was a really great episode. Dawn, I know that you commented on it too on Twitter. So, like, what did you think of that one?
Yeah, and actually, now that you mentioned it, I didn't know you were going to mention it, but if I were going to do a superlative, that would have probably been it too, because we love origin stories. That's why it's the first thing we ask somebody when we have them as a guest. And that's one of the reasons I think people like to be a guest on our show, because they don't always, I think Joey mentioned, you know, we don't always get a chance to talk about ourselves, and who, you know, and even Andy was so humble about it. It's like, well, it's kind of weird talking about myself, but the truth of the matter is, yeah, we do. We get to know each other better. And Matt and I talked about this when we started the show too. We have to talk about our lives. That's why we always ask, how was your week? You know, whether you want to talk about your job or your family or, you know, vacation or whatever, because people want to know people. And what I loved about Andy's was, first of all, it was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
And then I was able, he's a good storyteller. I'm not. So I really appreciate a good storyteller, because I'm all over like the place. You're lost, you know, but it was like, I was like right with him. I was picturing it. It was very just like walk through the process with him. And yeah, I totally appreciated it. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Maddie. Did you hear that one, Kate?
I have not listened to that one.
Oh, that's right. You were, no, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, it's okay.
Kate was on vacation, right? You were on vacation.
I was on vacation. Yeah. And I kind of fell off the face of the planet for a week or so. Took a little break, but it is a good point. You know, that you said Joey mentioned too, is like on my podcast, if I'm talking about myself, usually I take that out in editing because it's weird to me. You know, even if I'm just trying to relate with who my guest is, it's weird because nobody cares. Like, I feel like nobody cares, and that's not necessarily true.
I care.
I'll leave them in then.
Yeah, leave them in.
But it is true, you know, like I bring on guests to talk about them and to get to know them. And so, you know, it's tough. It's a fine line too, because people are so critical about that kind of stuff of like, well, you just want to talk. And this also comes a lot of being a female in sports and posting pictures or things like that. And you get things like, well, you just want attention. And so it's, you get that like weird feeling when you're talking about yourself, that you feel like that's not what you're here to do. So good on him for doing
it. Is. And I think it's a Wisconsin cultural thing too.
I would say
very humble. Yes.
Very much Midwestern values. That's a thing that I have to, in interesting ways, deal with in my job, actually. Like students who think that they have to do things all by themselves and not like, you know, put themselves out there a lot. I think it's hard for people with those like Midwestern values to overcome, but sometimes we need to, you know? Yes,
please do. Please do. Yeah. But don't go as far as people in California. No, I'm kidding. I mean, there's a balance where it's like me, and then but there's nothing more really charming to me is to hear somebody who, you know, isn't in any way an egotist saying, oh, I don't want to be too, you know, too proud or out there. You know what I mean? Like my sister's like that. Andy, you know, perfect example of that. So it's very endearing as well.
Yeah, it was good.
What else do you got for us, Maddie?
It's really good to like get to know another person who's just kind of part of the community to get to know better. So
that's right.
My next one, speaking of Packers Twitter being dramatic, of course, after Aaron Rodgers' late night gratitude Instagram post that blew up instantly on Twitter, of course, because everyone was posting it. there was a whole range of reactions. A lot of people, very hyperbolic. And then that kind of a thing also tends to breed like people like being funny about everybody else's reactions. There's that sort of like pushback with people being hilarious. And
Right.
so my favorite reaction, and there are a lot of really good ones to all of that, was one that Mamba put out there. What he did is he took like the Aaron Rodgers Instagram post and like blacked out most of the letters to find like the hidden message. And so, and the hidden message, you guys should go check it out. It's hilarious. The hidden message, I'll read it to you, was, "I pee my pants. Oops." So perfect. That was the hidden message Aaron was trying to convey. So definitely retweeted that one.
Yeah, a good one, man. The link is going to be in the show notes for everything we're talking about. And you know what? I will have to say, I really did get into that. I mean, when there's anything that's annoying, I always find the people making fun of it. So then I can get through it.
I'm usually one of those people.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
Exactly.
Well,
that's why you're here.
My third one was most helpful. So this is an article by Brian Maafi. It was called "How Will the Packers Approach the Draft?" And so I loved this article because I had a few lingering questions after the draft last year, things that I never really seemed to get answered. And he actually just happened to address a couple of those things. He started off by talking about how the Packers have approached the draft, since Gutekunst has taken over, and mentioned a bit about RAS, relative athletic score, RAS, and a question I always had last year when people would talk about RAS, because I was much more interested and invested and cognizant of the draft last year. I was wondering, does Gutekunst know about RAS? Is he looking at that figure? And I think Brian laid it out really nicely and very logically. He said basically, yes and no. I mean, they know it exists. It's we're not gonna pretend they don't know about this thing. It's a fairly well-known thing, but they're not using it that specific tool. Probably they have their own metrics. They have their own ways of evaluating talent that are way beyond anything we can imagine, because they're very, very good at it. And so kind of breaking that down is interesting. Talking a bit about RAS, but then talking about how they went against a lot of their tendencies in the draft last year. So not just to say that, but then dig into it with the different prospects that did go against that sort of go for a really high RAS score athlete, why they might have done that. And that in turn actually answered a thing I've been wondering all year, which was Josh Myers has been really good. And of course he can't help that he got injured, but we took him when Creed Humphrey was on the board, and we could have taken Creed Humphrey. He went just after, to the Chiefs, and had this amazing season. I've always been why didn't we get him? So this has been a nagging question for me. But then the thing that Brian just happened just kind of mentioned in the article is that the way how he saw it was that for Josh Myers, he had a higher floor. I'm going to just read it straight off because his words are better than mine in this. It's a higher floor and experience in the same zone blocking scheme the Packers run. Humphrey played in a man scheme, so the Packers valued Josh Myers' NFL zone blocking readiness to Humphrey's potential, even though he scored out as a lesser athlete. And I was everything I was
Right.
Finally, it made sense to me. And all year I've been wondering about it. I've asked a lot of people about it, and that was the best answer I've ever heard yet. So major shout out to Brian on that. He goes from there. He talks about what's going to be their approach, potentially what are the different approaches they might take, that is, in the draft, an all-in approach, a rebuild approach, what are they going to do? So Brian also incidentally is a great Twitter personality. He's very funny, a lot of good banter with him. So I'd recommend following Brian and also checking out this article. It was really great.
That sounds good. And I remember, boy, last year, I'm not, my brain hasn't even engaged into the whole draft thing. Although I did ask Andrew Murte today, when is it going to be this year? I know you're busy, but so they are, because Maggie has joined that Friday team.
I love that so much. She's so good.
I know, right? And he said, well, now Maggie's on board. We're going to get the dates, all together. And so, but I remember that too. I remember a couple articles like that just being so great. I knew that, the RAS thing was something new for me last year. I was like, oh, I know what that is now. And it's just fun looking them all up, but knowing that it's obviously not just like you said, it's not exactly just that. No one would draft a team just based on numbers and statistics.
Just that one metric.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah. So that's cool. Very insightful, Maddie. I love it.
Good one.
So for
we have Dawn.
Well, for this week, Dawn is going to try and turn masterfully, hopefully, smoothly, hopefully, her superlatives into a different, like a whole different category. And the whole superlative is basically Kate's last podcast. And it just so happened this way. I had a couple superlatives ready. They weren't super positive, but that's okay, right, Maddie? It's okay, Kate, right? Not everything's not always going to be roses and cream puffs.
Wait, did you see
So,
roses and cream puffs?
I don't know. I did say that.
I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna use that tomorrow in conversation. Like, well, it can't always be roses and cream puffs. I love that.
It just came out. I don't know.
Wisconsin.
Right.
I don't know where it came from. It kind of came from the same place some of the Wordles come from. It's like, oh, okay. I love Wordle so much. Okay. So I had, is this a joke? No, it's annoying. And that's yet another NFL lawsuit. And this time it's in Jerry Jones's home. Okay. I'm not going to go into it because we're going to talk to Kate about some of these things. And then it was a joke and, but a disappointing one. And that was, the whole Annie, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Agar. I was like, Anne.
I know.
Oh, okay. So, cause it was a joke, it was fun. And until it wasn't. And then it's like, okay, well, and there are plenty of people who that can take her place that have values that we can align ourselves with. So that's not a problem. Done. Check.
Side note about that real fast, if you don't mind me jumping in here, Don.
Please.
I loved that Sandwich jumped in and was like,
yes,
yeah, I could be the next one. She should be. She's hilarious. She'd be.
She's already halfway there.
The good new Annie. That's what I think.
Yeah, the real Annie. Okay. And then, oh no, I'm not going to say this one because it's really snarky and I was in a crabby mood. So we're just going to go right over this one. You guys can read it if you feel like it, but
we'll be in the show notes.
Mm-mm.
But you'd rather talk about Kate's last episode, you said, huh?
Yes. So because it kind of ties into Kate's my two superlatives. Is this a joke? And it is a joke. It should be it really ties into Kate's episode, which you all need to hear at TailKate, excuse me. A lot of times I talk about things on here that are not necessarily just Packers, but NFL related or even broader than that. And, it all comes down to, values and morals. And we have so many lawsuits going on, rightfully so. Will the NFL ever be accountable? The one good thing I hear throughout this is that at least the Packers haven't been so far on the wrong side of some of these just poor decision making. And of course, we're talking about racism. We're talking about fixing the games so that you can get them, to a better draft position for the next year because, you might as well, which, but paying coaches and maybe even players for fixing games. There's a whole lot packed into the Brian Flores lawsuit, like just a whole lot, so much so that I want to bring an attorney on here to just because I got a great summary and I mentioned it on the last podcast of that whole complex lawsuit, which isn't going away. But then also the new one with the Cowboys, which is just disgusting. I hate to even give too much voice to it, but then also going back to the football team, the whatever the hell their name is, excuse me, this month. Oh, the Commanders. Okay, good, fine. Okay. And that's an okay name. I'm okay with the name, but okay. So we're going to investigate it. No, we're going to hire an independent person. Oh, they're done, but we're not going to make the findings public. And so then they get called out again. And now it's like, okay, we're going to investigate. What? That was like 2 years ago. What? It's just wrong. And so I think it's really time personally to hold the NFL's feet to the fire. And I think Brian Flores' timing couldn't be better. And I'd love to hear more about what your experience, Kate, was. I really appreciated where you were coming from because we are privileged if we're not being discriminated against. But for me, it's always been a thing of, well, how do you show people or a group of people that you're supportive without like getting in their face about, you know what I mean? It's an awkward thing for someone.
Yeah.
But I think you did such a graceful job of that with your two guests, which were Ferd Turgeson. I can't not laugh when I say it. And Jasmine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Monte and Jasmine.
So tell us more. I mean, that was really just intense. What did it feel intense when it was going on when you were having that conversation?
No, I mean, the two of them, Monte and Jasmine, are phenomenal. And just as humans, to start with, they're great. You know, Jasmine's a really good friend of mine. Monte is becoming a good friend of mine. And Jasmine and I had a conversation the week before when she was in Green Bay, just on racism in general. And then the whole Brian Flores thing happened. And so it just kind of aligned. And hats off to them. I mean, like I said on my podcast, they had no obligation to educate me and my listeners on anything. And so I'm so grateful to them. And it's hard, like you said, as someone who does have privilege, how do we show support? And so that it's one of the things that I asked them at the end of the episode. I said, how can someone like me try to spark change? Because I don't want to be performative, because that's not what it is. Like, I have every intention of following through with anything that I say that I'm going to do. Slapping end racism at the end of the end zones, like the NFL, is not the route that I want to take. And the feedback was really just be intentional about what you're listening to and the people that you're engaging with, and really calling out people when you see something. And Monte made a great point of when he sees something happening, whether it's racism, sexism, whatever it is, if it's a joke that makes you uncomfortable, for any reason, to just ask the person to explain it. Because chances are, if it makes you uncomfortable hearing the joke, it probably makes them uncomfortable to explain why they think it's funny. And it wasn't uncomfortable for me because those two are so wonderful, but it can be an uncomfortable conversation with someone sometimes. Having a conversation like that with some of my family members can be uncomfortable, because I'm trying to explain something to them that they've never experienced, nor do they think that I've experienced it, because I haven't. So like that part gets uncomfortable. But I said it a couple of times on the podcast, it doesn't have to be scary if you're willing to listen. Right. If you're willing to hear people out and understand them. And I've been through this 100 times trying to explain to someone why women are so tired. And it's exhausting. And so if I can take some of that exhaustion off of anybody that's affected by any of the stuff that's going on, and take some of that exhaustion off of them and try to get the word out myself, then that's going to be my goal.
Yeah, that's great. And, when Monte did say that about, because there are tactful ways to just say, well, I'm getting a little better at this myself. It's like, wait, I don't understand what you meant by that. And then, because the person saying things that are offensive may not even be aware of it until they have been asked to revisit it, instead of just going back to their old, cliche, whatever tropes or whatever. So I got that from that too. I mean, obviously, if they know it's going to make someone uncomfortable, asking that's a good answer to. I mean, it's a good answer. It's a good question to ask as an answer to that kind of thing. It's very grace. It's full of grace and inquisitiveness, which I think we need more of, and instead of pointing the finger, because you just never know if somebody might have a realization once they're like, oh yeah, maybe,
Probably shouldn't
okay.
have said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I get, yeah. Why did
Mhm.
I say that? Maybe would be the last time they ever did. But if you said that's offensive and walked away or whatever, they probably just keep saying it
Mhm.
because they don't
It
understand.
would close a person up, make them feel defensive. So better to find ways to help people realize things, teachable moments.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved that. I loved everything about that podcast. And I also liked that you're talking about these things because on here, sometimes I'm funny or whatever, and we like humor. I think that's how we get through, at least for me, I get through a lot of things with just making fun, of the situation, because otherwise it'd be too scary. Um, but I also, there's a part of me that wants to talk about really important, bigger issues, and so sometimes I feel, I don't know, Matt, if you picked up on this, but like when I try to bring up a superlative that's kind of a downer, I kind of feel guilty about it.
No,
Like,
shouldn't feel guilty about it.
I know,
No.
see, Matt will say that, but yeah, I'll be like, oh, am I going to be a downer if I bring that up? I want to make people happy. So I totally, from that reason, and that might be a female thing too. You're just supposed to make people okay. That I really appreciated the episode so much. All of your episodes are great, but I'm just saying this
And
one.
I want actually, if I can piggyback on that, if you don't mind, that's the thing I like a lot about your podcast, Kate, is that most of the content that I consume is like, let's talk about the Packers, and then the stuff that you're talking about is the bigger issues, like your first episode talking about Thirst Trap Thursday, the episode with Peter Bukowski talking about the inappropriateness of males to females on Twitter and in our society. That was a really good episode, by the way. I loved that one a lot.
That's probably one of my favorite episodes. That's I think next to the one with Monte and Jasmine, my favorite, because Peter's so great in general, but he has a really good ability to make something really funny, but also bring it back to the serious. Like that whole it was only 30 minutes, and it was like the perfect balance of humor and actual serious conversation.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, is like having the conversations around this stuff, making people aware of it. In the Packers community, like, yeah, let's bring that into that. Let's bring that into like all the aspects of our life, so people are thinking about this stuff, so we can make it better as a society. So, spreading light, Kate. I love it. It's great stuff.
Spreading the love. And what else,
you.
Kate, I want to say, and Matt's gonna laugh because I'm gonna bring up my
I laugh at everything, Dawn.
Well, as somebody who's a bit older, to see the whole Thirst Trap Thursday. By the way, even though I am old, when it was going on, I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. You're right. It wasn't that hard to figure out. But I was like, this is so great to see, to pass the torch, because every generation of men and women hopefully are coming along a little bit farther, getting a little bit better or whatever. So it's very encouraging for me. And I feel like, and maybe I think it's really good for people who are young to hang out with older people, and people who are older not to be afraid to hang out with younger people, because we can learn from each other. And so I've learned so much from you and from other young ladies. I just sound like an old person. I sound like an old person. You youngins on Packers Twitter. I mean, really, really just touches my heart. Okay, so I had an experience today to this point. I don't think I would have thought this way had I not been being continually kind of bathed with these good reminders of how things should be, and how the perspective and all of that, that you have discussed. Peter even mentioned. I love that episode too. But I was walking through town today. I was in a really cool area, huge sidewalks, no crowding or anything. And it was the first time in my life I ever experienced man spreading on a sidewalk. This dude, he was like, okay, walking like he was like he was a giant, but he wasn't. And I wanted to stop and say, you're not that big, dude, man. Just, you're not that large. You're just keep it over there. There's enough room for everybody. But I didn't. But I was like thinking, what would Jamie say? Or what would, and I had to think about it. You guys, you're making an impact is my point here. Okay. And it's small. It might seem small to you, but all these little things. But I was thinking about it as I continued on my walk. And I was like, if he walks by me the other way again, I was ready for him. I wasn't ready in the way I probably should have been, because I felt very angry and I was just crabby, like I'm going to trip him or something like that. But I wouldn't have. But anyway, the point is, you're making some really fantastic impact, and with people not just of your own age, but men and women, obviously men and women. I can't speak for men, but I think I can see Matt's face right now. So I know for a fact.
Yeah, speaking as a man.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff. And it's funny that you had thought about doing a podcast for a long time and you just weren't sure. I'm glad you did it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really glad I did too. I really wanted it to be about social issues relating to sports, because I feel like a lot of times people don't realize that they can be the same thing. We hear all the time, like, you play a game, just stick to football, just stick to basketball. And you hear it across a whole bunch of professions, actors, if they speak out on anything, it's, you get paid to be in movies, just do that. You don't need to speak on social issues. And they have every right to speak on social issues just like you and I do. Just because we have smaller jobs that don't pay as well and aren't as public, we all vote the same. We all have that same right to vote and voice our opinions, and that right to free speech. And I hate to use that because people use it to spread hate speech, but we do all have that right, and we have the right to receive the consequences of the things that we say. And I think that NBA is doing a great job with some of these social issues. And so I just like talking about things that relate to real life, because sports bleed into that. And those are real people. Just because they're famous and they're playing a game for a living doesn't mean they're less of people.
For sure.
Yeah. You like talking about it, and you're good at it too.
Yeah, you're good at it. Yeah, you are.
Thank you.
Very well done. Well, and how many episodes have you done so far? It's like
8. Yeah. So this last one was 8.
Oh, congratulations. Wow.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's like you've been doing it for years. So so my superlatives really just kind of mirror what your last episodes said. I'm going to, and I feel also validated, because there are things that I like to use as my superlatives, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't talk. And that's part of the Wisconsin thing too, and don't make waves, but you're right. I mean, what it comes down to is, what are we here for? I mean, making waves. I mean, to not like in a negative sense, but if we don't speak up, man, we only have one chance, and say what's on your heart,
So there's and I should send it to you guys, so maybe you can put it in the notes, but there's a poem that I just listened to. I mean, I heard it a long time ago, but I listen to it every once in a while when I need to fuel my fire. And one of the lines is, speak every time you stand, so you do not forget your voice. And I think as women and people in general, but this, Dawn, you had mentioned that sometimes as a woman, you feel like you have to make everything okay and like not bring up anything negative. And it's important for us to, as people, bring up things that are upsetting and things that are needing improvement in the world. And it's okay. Like I tell my girls all the time, like, make the waves, because if you don't, nobody will. So get out there and do it.
That's right. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
we do. We need these reminders. You're so good at that. And I'm so glad we had you on for that. And I personally, like, I can just feel it in my personal life, but also in the kind of like the overall arching, of what. There was one other thing, by the way, and then I was almost done talking, but here I go again. I just, another thing that was said, it was Monte. He just said kind of like, and it wasn't a big point he was making. He said like in passing, and I don't know exactly the words, but it was something along the lines of, well, if you don't, I think everybody now knows there are, because of the logos in the end zone, the end races, and the all that happened, even if it's not enough, and even if it was a little, or maybe seems a little gimmicky in some ways, at least it's out there now. So all these steps. But when he said that, I was like, yeah, but you couldn't have said that a year ago, even. I mean, he wasn't saying it in negative. He was just saying now that everyone knows. But it was such a little point within a bigger point that he was making that I thought, that's great. Now, will it become, obviously the end race, the hashtag end racism, or whatever it is that's on their helmets this next year, be the whatever it is, will become mundane. But as long as we keep stepping it up from there, we're going to be okay that way.
Yeah, and I think as long as they put some actions behind their little performance, then that's what matters. And I think that's where fans come in, is like, okay, last year you put all of these sayings on the back of helmets, you put end racism at the end of every end zone, at every stadium. So now what are you doing to end racism within the NFL and within the lives of these players that it's affecting, and the people that it's affecting? And so holding people accountable is such a big piece of it. And I think that's another thing that we can do. And I'm going off on a tangent, I'm so sorry, but when I asked, what is it that we can do to make change as a white person, it's also holding people accountable, because if only the people that are affected by it are speaking out about it, the people that are doing it don't care. And I say that about the way people treat women all the time. And it's the same thing. It's like, I don't need a man to stand up for me against another man, but that man that's making sexist comments towards me is not going to listen to me or any other woman. But if a man says it, suddenly it's like, crap, maybe I am saying things that I maybe shouldn't. And same situation. If someone's being racist towards a Black person and a Black person says something to them, they don't care because that's in their brain. But if a white person says, hey man, can't say that. Like, what are you doing? That internalized racism that they have is kind of set aside a little bit, because a person that they see as superior for whatever reason is in their brain, something clicks a little bit, hopefully.
It's such a good reminder that, like, to be an ally and to be an advocate for others isn't a passive thing. Like, you have to, back up the good words and stuff with the actions and the actual doing things.
Yeah, and it's, oh, go ahead, Donna, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's an all part of our lives. If you're a hiring manager somewhere, it's because I've seen it so many times where I have friends that have changed their names on a resume to make it sound more white to get interviews. And so it's like, okay, if you're a hiring manager at a small company, it doesn't even have to be big. Like, it's on you to make sure that that's an even keeled playing field. And so it's on everyone. Yeah, it's not a passive thing. I'm constantly trying and talking to people about how can we make this better? Because the day that I stop doing that is the day that I might stop caring about it. And I don't want to do that.
I can't imagine you ever not caring. but any more than I could myself or Maddie here. But
Yeah.
I'm finding, I think that this, I don't know. I mean, I do think that this whole Packers Twitter, what we call Packers Twitter, the community has empowered me in a lot of ways in different parts of my life. I made a comment like there was a trial in Minnesota, the woman police officer who
with the taser and
taser. Yeah. And I'm very careful about whether it's Twitter or anything, just making a comment, because there's just people. I mean, I'm not there to be somebody's like punching bag. Like, I don't care. But I think, and it was on a YouTube channel where it's not a huge YouTube channel. And most of us know each other because he's just starting out. But I think I just said something along the lines is, well, yeah, I mean, just about the mental capacity of somebody carrying a weapon, and what kind of that kind of training involves. Or I said A, and then B was like, or maybe not having a weapon when you're just doing, routine traffic stops or whatever. Just because he asked, like the YouTuber guy asked. So I'm answering that. And I'm like, no one ever, I hardly say anything on YouTube. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody reacted to my comment. So he says, oh, well, she had this 20-year perfect record and blah, 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 blah. And not that I'm victim blaming, but why did he run away or whatever? And I've heard that so many times. And I was so good because my normal me would have been, excuse me, that is victim blaming. You just did it. So by saying not that I'm doing it doesn't make you not do it. You just did it anyway. But I didn't even address that. What I said was, I asked a question. I said, okay, how many times in her exquisite career or whatever, however he said that she had like this perfect record? Well, we don't really know that for sure because they only allow so much stuff into court. How many times was she presented with a situation where she had to either pull a taser or a gun? I said, you know why I asked that question? Because it was in the trial. 0. What matters is what she did when she had to do it. She's killed somebody. I didn't say that part, but I was like, I'm going to ask a question, no answer, because they didn't listen to the trial. What matters is what we do when the stakes are high and when someone's life or feelings or whatever is on the line, not 20 years of sitting there doing nothing, collecting a paycheck. I don't know. I just went on a soapbox. I'm sorry, but that's kind of what I felt came out of your conversation too. It's like, nobody wants to hear, oh, she had 20 years of a perfect record. And I'm not blaming the victim. Wow. So people don't hear themselves or think sometimes. And I like that you're talking about these things openly. And now I'm fired up.
I get really fired up about it. What was I doing the other day? I can't remember I don't know if it was a podcast or what I was doing, but I went on this tangent and I get so heated about it because it doesn't make sense to me. And that's right. Not that I want someone to make it make sense because I don't want to know, but but at the same time, I'm like, I don't understand how people think that way. And I will never understand. And this actually happened. What was now it's escaped me. Gosh, dang it.
It'll come back.
It will. There was something going on Twitter that people were making excuses for, and I can't remember. I don't know. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you edit these, huh?
Well, no, I don't. By the way, we don't edit anything. It's going.
Oh, good.
I don't have time for that, but I barely have time to get it up. It's like, it's going up the way it is.
When someone said it was edited, you lied to me.
Well, I meant Dawn puts it together and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
there is work
edit?
that goes in.
We try not to edit over here. We try to.
That's
We
fine.
try to like this is it.
I should do that. I should practice that.
I was gonna say, be kind to yourself. Fine. Editing sucks.
It really does.
I don't want to do that. I mean, I
really
have my
does.
limits. I do a lot of stuff, as Matt says, but I do have my limits. Yeah, that's one of the things. Now I lost my train of thought because you said something that made me think of something else you said that was really great, and I can't remember it right now. But anywho, just so much. I mean, we could literally have 5 episodes on that episode. Mm-hmm. So I'm just glad we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Openly, and yeah, it's really. There's only. I think we're here, like we all have our, I'm a more spiritual person. So it's like, it's me and God, and that's it. And I have to be accountable to a much higher power, not a human, not a flawed human. And because people are flawed, but people don't know what they're saying. But there's also a way. When I do say something, it's usually really snarky, or it's really thoughtful. And I'm either really trying to be funny because I can't handle the situation, or, but I'm trying to do it where I just don't say anything, or then I think of a good thought-provoking, heart-provoking question, like what was brought up in your podcast too. That's just, there's ways that was such a great suggestion. And I'm sure there's a million more. And, we have to look at who's on our friends list and who we're associating with. And I mean, one of the other things that you brought up was, and I'm not familiar with this because I had my own experience in southeastern Wisconsin city, more of a city life. So I think there's some ugly parts you were talking about of Wisconsin's culture, which I'm not familiar with, but my family has mentioned to me, and now because I've been gone so long. I was just a child practically when I left. So I didn't know about that stuff. I mean, my experience was Southeast Wisconsin, like Milwaukee and Madison, and then visiting all over in the summer, and that you didn't really care about anything but swimming and making ice cream. Homemade ice cream.
Yeah.
All right. Dawn, it's getting late, so we should probably bring it home here. What do you think?
Final thoughts. Those were our final thoughts, I think.
A nice bunch of final thoughts there.
A bunch of final thoughts. And Matt's like, ladies, I have a life. Okay.
Oh, I don't. No, it's just we've been going for a while, that's all. So yeah, no.
So
Kate. So many thank yous to you. I mean, this was so awesome talking to you.
Thank you. I'm happy I'm here. Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
It's been great and enlightening. And if you're listening to us here or watching our video, surprise, Kate, we're on video. Sorry about that.
We told her ahead of time.
Yeah,
barely.
I thought you did it. Anyway, so please make sure you're following TailKate, TailKete on Twitter. And that was Maddie's line. Right.
And of course, also follow Kate herself, not just her podcast. One of the better follows out there in the Packers Twitter community for sure. So, and otherwise, what else do you got for us, Dawn?
So yes, we love you all. We appreciate you all being here. We're so glad we could share Kate with you. We appreciate you so much. We're all so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and to have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod. And we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Yes, very important.